Good morning. Before I introduce Taj and his team, I just want to, from the board and the staff of the museum, I want to thank all of you for coming out, supporting the museum. Without all of you, we wouldn't be here 25 years. So I just want to thank all of you, and the ones that are watching remotely, give yourselves a big hand. I'm going to obviously introduce Taj, but there's two things that, two things you may not know about Taj. He's not only a car guy, but he's a smart guy. He has an MBA from Stanford, is that correct? Yes, so he got an MBA. And I think this is your 40th year with General Motors?
Be 41 in December.
So, with that, I turn it over to you, Taj.
Well, I'd like to add my welcome. Thanks everybody for coming. I'm curious how many people were here for the show we did yesterday? You guys are gluttons for punishment. I can't believe it. We're doing it again tomorrow, so you can just stay in your seats overnight. That way you'll be sure you have a seat for tomorrow. So, my clicker. So thanks very much. What I said yesterday is we're going to try to make it a little bit different, but cover the basics each day for people who are new. But because we're doing it 3 days in a row, because we know a lot of people come in each time. In fact, I think, didn't you have that exact seat yesterday? I think you're wearing the same shirt, actually. So, anyway, we're trying to mix it up a little bit, maybe talk about some stuff that's different, so you'll recognize some of it from yesterday, and then some new, and then we'll probably try to do the same thing tomorrow, bring in a little bit new. So there was 3 of us, me, Harlan, and Kirk. Yesterday we're asking Brian. Brian, raise your hand. Brian Stokel is from the interior. So we didn't talk much about the interior yesterday, so we'll concentrate on that a little bit more today, and Brian will do that. So. I know everybody likes the videos. Did you guys like the videos we showed yesterday? Okay, so we'll start with that same video. So, don't tell anybody you saw this.
High-performance car. The difference is only in the grille.
I feel no matter how good the car looks, pretty as pretty does, she's got to go like she looks. I wouldn't have a car that didn't have the fastest engines and everything. I've got engines in here now I shouldn't talk to you about because you're not supposed to be doing this.
The best in every individual. So to bring out the best in people, you have to have them involved. Well, people like to be involved in things that are exciting, and of course the whole idea of racing is exciting in itself. To be out here and enjoy the thrill of racing a quarter.
We're so close to bringing this dream of an all-new mid-engine Corvette to reality.
if we can turn the spotlights down a little bit, it'd be make it a little easier to see the screen, it'd be a little brighter. But we like looking at that historical footage because the car that we have here today wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the efforts of those who preceded us. And so we stand on the shoulders of giants. You heard some of them in that video, Zora, of course, Bill Mitchell. The third voice you heard there was Lloyd Royce, who was talking about racing and being an exciting thing to be involved with. You may recognize that name. Lloyd was president of the company, and his son, Mark, is now president of the company. So the passion runs really deep, and actually Mark is flying down later this afternoon to be with us at the Hall of Fame dinner tonight. So he's been a huge supporter all the way through of us doing what we think is the right thing to do for Corvette, which leads us into the next video, which I also showed yesterday with a bunch of us on the team talking about the challenge that we had in doing a mid-engine Corvette.
Felt like we were reaching the limit of our performance capability and the architectures that we had. We decided to move away from our comfort zone.
We left no stone unturned. We were constantly asking ourselves, could we make something newer, better, more unique, and maintain the Corvette?
It's part art, so hand sculpting clay, and part digital math-based design.
Purposeful surface development in terms of the three elements that play a part in that. Drag, of course, cooling, and then downforce, keeping the vehicle stable.
When we finally got to the track, we burst out laughing. Oh my God, that's what we wanted.
World-class lubrication system.
More tactile feedback, so more direct steering.
The rear weight bias for better acceleration, performance, and track times.
A dual-clutch transmission, which quicker than a human being could shift a manual transmission.
The history, people, mystique of the car, we're simply taking the baton across the finish line.
And this is really highlighting that craft and quality.
This is going to be the car for a new generation. A very compelling three-dimensional machine.
A game changer. People will look at it and they just will not believe what they're seeing. When you get into a Corvette, you're a superhero.
That's you guys. You guys are the superheroes, and thank you so much for being here. We wouldn't be able to do what we do if it wasn't for your support, buying the cars, being part of the, enjoying it, making it part of your lifestyle. So thank you very much. It's really weird watching ourselves on the big screen here. I don't know about you guys, but it's pretty awkward watching ourselves back. Anyway, that video was a compilation of, it was not scripted. They just sat all of us on the team down and talked to us about the car, and I think it took 8 or 10 hours, and so we got 2 minutes of good material. So that's what you saw. And actually we used a lot of that material. If you go on website, you'll see that there's this Corvette Academy. I think there's like 25 videos, all talking about little bits of the car. And it's nice that you hear the people who actually did the car, worked on the car, describing features, describing how it works. So while you're waiting to get your new C8, you can kind of go through, and by the time you get it, you're going to understand a lot about how everything works. So I want to thank everybody for coming here, 25th anniversary. It's amazing how this worked out. This wasn't planned, that we'd have a brand new car, mid-engine car, and it would coincide almost exactly with the 25th anniversary of the museum, but worked out pretty good. So we're happy to be here. We got lots of people from Michigan. This is some of the faces you'll see out front who've worked on the car. We've been diligently working on this thing for years and haven't been able to say anything, share anything, but now here we are, we're able to do that. So that's the team from Michigan, and another very large contingent here, local in Bowling Green. You'll see a lot of these faces around. Feel free to approach them, ask them about the car, get your questions answered, and this is part of the job we really love, talking face-to-face with customers. So it's really cool that we're able to bring out this car And even though we love our history, we respect our history, we're always trying to move the ball forward, always trying to, I know Dave Hill's here somewhere, one of the things he used to say, we always try to exceed our previous best. So we did a great job on the C7, we're trying to do a better job on C8, take all the learnings from all the history, all of our customer interactions, and how can we consolidate that into a car that's the best one that's ever been done. So this slide was kind of the scheme behind, okay, why go mid-engine? There's a lot of physics reasons why it makes sense to get more weight on the back. I'll talk about that a little bit. But the whole, Corvette's all about the driving experience. Two people in a car and that kind of visceral, unique driving experience that you don't get from any other product. And so, in the sense where the engine is just one part of that equation. How do you get that driving experience? And so we really wanted from the beginning to optimize everything about that. So putting the engine in the back, you could do a pretty bad car. Just because you put the engine in the back doesn't make it a great car. You have to really take advantage of that and leverage it as much as possible. So we knew it would give the car a new proportion, so that's a design thing, but that's not why we did it. But we really wanted to have that kind of electrifying driving experience. And that's a big part of it, in addition to getting the power to the ground. But the equation we've been trying to solve really for the last 15 years is how do you do that, get all that performance stuff, without compromising the rest of the car. So the things that you've become used to. A decent amount of luggage space, very comfortable to drive in for long distances, very reliable, easy to maintain. Part of the value proposition is not just the initial price of the car, but how much does it cost to stay in the car, to maintain the car. And so those are all things that Corvette is known for. We had to make sure that just because we put the engine in the back, we didn't sacrifice. And so really, it's been close to 15 years we've been thinking about how do we architect a car that does all that. This slide was actually put together by Harlan almost 15 years ago. It was actually during Dave Hill's leadership on the team. And so this was the big picture. The question is how to do it. That's what took a long time. It's so old that Sammy Sosa is our poster child for Grand Slam home runs. He retired quite a long time ago. And Harlan's a good friend of his. He says he's not looking as good as he did then these days. Okay, so a couple of fundamentals, and I talked about this yesterday, but for people who didn't see it. So when you move the engine to the back, you move the center of gravity, you move the whole occupant compartment forward, in this case about 16.5 inches, so the whole windshield moves way forward. We've got some dimensions on here, so if you look at where your feet are relative to the front tires, you sit way behind the front wheels on today's car, and actually quite a bit rearward of the center of gravity of the vehicle, which is about midway between the wheels. When you get to a mid-engine car, you're sitting way far forward, your feet are almost touching what we call the tire flap, so that's the envelope that the tires live in. So you can see you're only about a foot from the front axle. And because you're sitting almost on top of the center of gravity and actually slightly forward of it, the whole car rotates around you. And so it gives you a very different driving experience. I call it riding the front axle, so when you turn in, you move in as opposed to sitting in the back and the front end of the car is way in front of you and it's turning in. Even though the front engine cars are super responsive and get great marks for handling, it's a very different experience when you're sitting closer to the front axle than the rear. And then front visibility, we wanted to make sure that the view of the road was something that you could appreciate. You could place the car very precisely on the street or on the track, and that panoramic view was something we really strive for to get better when we move the engine to the back. And even though it doesn't look like it's a big angle change, we do a pretty good job on today's car. 3.5, this is called down vision, the angle that you can see the road and how close you can see the road in front of your feet. Going from 3.5 to almost 5 degrees down vision is a milestone. And there's cars we're letting people sit in out there. It's hard to appreciate when the car is sitting still But when you get out on the road, that's when you realize, okay, this is a much different view than I'm used to. And once you get used to it, you never want to go back. You really love that sort of go-kart feel of being able to see everything around the front of the car. So this is the way a media person described it. This is not the way we described it, and certainly no disrespect for the current car. But the way they described it is, when you're sitting way behind the engine, it's more like a locomotive with the engineer's cab way back here versus the jet fighter sitting way in the front. So it's not that big a difference, but it is kind of in that direction. So other things we wanted to do is, you know, today's car, there's some people who don't fit very well. We actually wanted to have more people be able to fit in the car. And so from the beginning, we said, even though the engine's behind you, which would be easy to say, okay, it's going to be cramped, you're going to have a bulkhead behind the seats that are going to prevent you from going back. From the beginning, we said we need an inch more seat travel. And even though that doesn't sound like a lot, it's quite a lot. On the C7, I sit with the seat full rearward. On the C8, when I put the seat full rearward, I can barely touch the pedals. They're far enough away. And then we added recline angle. So today's car reclines 9 degrees from the standard position. We almost doubled that to 17 degrees, so people who like to lean back in the seat, either as a driving position or resting comfortably on the passenger side, we actually added that recline angle so you can really be comfortable on long trips. So that's part of solving the equation. How do you do a mid-engine car, get all the performance benefits, but keep sort of that long-distance GT experience that I know many of you enjoyed coming here for this weekend. Kind of as a byproduct, we didn't really appreciate it at first, but it turned out to be a huge deal. I don't know if Kirk's going to show his chart that shows the aerodynamic pressures on the car, but a big chunk of the impact of the air on the car is across the windshield. The air accelerates over the hood, and when it encounters this brake, this steepening of the angle where you get to the windshield, that actually slows the air down and creates a bubble of high pressure at the base of the windshield. And when that's closer to the front axle, that helps you for downforce. So you can see on the new architecture, this bubble of pressure is sitting almost right over the front tire versus well behind the front tire previously. And getting front downforce on a street car is a huge challenge. You can tell on our Z06s and ZR1s where we have these really extreme splitters. That's all to get the high pressure air at the front of the car pushing down on that splitter. That's an extreme measure we have to take to get front downforce. When you put the windshield here, you don't need such big aerodynamic aids. So on our Z51 package, which actually has true full vehicle downforce, you see there's just a little tiny splitter on there. So that really helps you for contacting curbs and things. So that's a way that the architecture itself makes a fundamental change into the way we can do our engineering. So the other part of it, does anybody here drink beer? Okay, a couple people. So the luggage, you know, it was funny because when we did the reveal, I wanted to talk about luggage room, and the communications people are like, "Are you nuts? Why would you talk about luggage room in a reveal of a high-performance sports car?" But we come to these events and we watch what you do with your cars, and we've kind of spoiled you since the 5th generation. Even though people don't say luggage room is a reason for purchase of a performance car like this, it's nice, isn't it, to have that kind of, and it lets you incorporate the car into your lifestyle. You can go on long trips. You don't have to bring an SUV. You can look good, you can have fun drive, and you can bring everything you want in your car. And so we wanted to be able to keep doing that. And we had the issue of, you know, it would have been easy just to do a fixed roof car. We wanted to keep the removable roof panel, even on the coupes, and so we had to have a place to put it. And so it had to fit in the back. That's why you have a trunk in the back and a trunk in the front. It made our job a lot harder, but that's the kind of thing, that's part of the formula. We had to figure out how to do that. And actually, if you fill the front and the back with water, it's about the same. It's almost exactly the same volume. The shapes are very different. and that was a compromise we had to make, but if you look at the total volume, so if you're packing with soft luggage and so forth, in fact, even the luggage that we sell as an accessory that completely fills the back of a 7th generation car also fits perfectly in this car. So part of the way we did that is we put the heat exchangers off to the sides in the front, and if you look at the rolling chassis out front, you'll see that they're surprisingly big for a car with a really low, pointy nose. If you look at the size of those radiators, the two of them together are quite a bit bigger than the one central radiator that we have today, and that preserves room in the center for the front. 5 cases of beer, and the reason why we show beer here is because those heat exchangers are outboard, all the hot air goes hot. So this is cool, so that's why the beer's here and the pizza's in the back. So it's a little warmer in the back. It's about like we've experienced in the last few generations of cars. It'll heat up over time on a long trip. It doesn't have the kind of sun look that today's car does, but it does have the exhaust and the muffler running underneath. We have tons and tons, multiple shielding, thermal management to make sure it doesn't get too hot. So it does get warm back there, but no worse than what you're used to.
Are there drains for the melted ice?
There are drains, actually. Anyway, use an ice pack, though. We prefer if you use an ice pack, a solid ice pack. Anyway. This is a very informal thing. If you guys have any random thoughts you'd like to shout out, that would be fine. So in the back, we want to make sure, and we say 2 sets of golf clubs, that'd be 2 day bags, but we actually did go out and get a pro bag, like a real professional golfer's bag. I don't have the picture in here. You can put one of the giant Caddyshack type bags here in the back, and of course the front. The top goes back here, and you can put one of our development engineers likes to ride mountain bikes. He's got a 29er, if you know what that means, so 29-inch diameter wheels. That's the biggest wheels you can get on a bicycle. That fits in the back, and then he puts the bike on the bike rack. So you'll find that this car has a lot of utility, certainly superior to any other mid-engine vehicle. There's the roof in the back. So I mentioned we have both exterior and interior design here, so it's awesome to have both Kirk and Brian here. So Kirk's going to go through some of the stuff that he went through yesterday, talk a little bit more about exterior design, then we'll get Brian up here to talk interior. So thanks.
All right, good afternoon. Yesterday we went through the exterior design, showed you a lot of stuff on aerodynamics, things like that, and we really look for the exterior, thank you. We really look for the exterior to, go back a slide, sorry. Really look for the exterior to draw you in. This is, we're trying to get your attention with the exterior design, but it's really the interior design that we look to seal the deal. And that we spend a lot of focused attention, a lot of design effort goes into the interior. If I had to score between exterior and interior, as far as the number of releases, the number of components, the interior probably has 3 times the components that the exterior does. So I've got Brian Stokel here, and then from the interior design team, and he's actually going to take us through this. Before we get into that, I just wanted to offer up congratulations to Tom Peters. He's been our design director for the Performance Studio for the last 20 years. He's our Hall of Fame inductee tonight. And so if you see him, please congratulate him. This is some of the team here that oversees the car. You have John Cafaro, their Hall of Fame inductee as well. And that we spent a lot of time outside looking at the car. It gives us a chance to see it from that block away. Our viewing patio is the size of a football field, and that we're out there in all kinds of weather. A lot of discussions, a lot of design decisions here, and that, but all good. You can kind of see senior leadership there, Taj is there. A lot of time discussing what's next for the car. And then for here, this is one of our prize photos. You can see some of the influence. We talk about being jet fighter inspired. It kind of gets into the stance of the vehicle, high tail, low nose, cab forward, and that does have some inspiration there. So I'll let Brian take you through the interior.
Thanks, Kirk. So what we'd like to do today, I don't know, I'm sure a lot of you saw Kirk's presentation yesterday going through the design process, so I'd like to show everybody kind of the same story for the interior. You'll notice a lot of similarities, but and there's a lot of things that are similar. So just like with the exterior, you know, on the Corvette team, we respect our heritage a lot. One of the great challenges from our head of design, Ed Welburn, was this interior that we come up with has to look and feel like a Corvette. We wanted to make something that still feels new and exotic and brings Corvette into a new generation, but it still has to feel familiar, it has to feel like a Corvette, and it's got to be unmistakable. So these are some of the early design sketches. We always start in 2D, you know, some combination of digital drawing and pen and paper. We have a team of about 4 or 5 designers that were sketching different themes going through here. You know, where you can see in some of the sketches, you know, everybody's excited about, you know, this is the first mid-engine Corvette, so we're, you know, bringing that into our sketches. We're starting to look at different ways that we can tie in some of the design features from the engine compartment, bring that through and forward into the interior. And then here you can see, these are some of the first sketches from Tristan Murphy, the lead designer, and you can see the very beginnings of kind of the cockpit shape coming together. You can see how the, you know, the forms in the engine bay are kind of feeding in through the waterfall and up in toward the center. You can see the cockpit shape starting to take form here around the steering wheel and the driver's area. And then this is basically the kind of the final theme sketch that Tristan did. So what you can see here is the adrenaline red accents in the cockpit area. The screen tilted toward the driver. We wanted to make a very driver-focused environment, but also still have something, a really nice space for the passenger to enjoy too. From after the sketches, we move forward into clay model, and it's really important for us as part of the design process to be able to see and quickly modify and model and test out different design solutions. So clay is a really great tool for us to do that. We can change it very fast. We can work back and forth. We have a buck in the studio where we actually have physical seats from a C7, and we can kind of cube it up together, push the seats in there, sit in it, see how it feels, and, you know, just kind of double check our assumptions on things, then pull the seats back and start working on it again. We can do that, you know, probably within half an hour. Here's a couple shots of the design team sitting, you know, actually sitting in the car. In the studio here, we even milled in headers so we can check out how it feels to be. It really does feel like you're sitting inside a car, except that it's all clay color. And then after we go through the clay model, another big part of the project is creating hard models, and so we actually create a wrap model. This is all foam parts painted in primer right now, and we wrap these parts in leather, and that way we can show senior leadership within the company and kind of sell the vision for what we want Corvette to be. So here's a couple shots of that foam model. You can see the Stingray in the back there. Another huge part about the C8 interior is the new seats. We have a 3-seat strategy. Harlan's going to talk a little bit more about that. But Nathan Dressman, who is the seat designer, you can see him here. We wanted to have the base seat, which, you know, gets you your value, the GT2 seat, which gives you a lot more luxury, great for grand touring, and then also the competition seat, which is just even more building on today's competition seat with these nice aggressive bolsters to hold you in place during hard cornering. Another great improvement for the C8 is the steering wheel. We're very inspired by looking at race cars, looking at you know, things that were out in kind of the gaming market. And we're looking at the digital screens. You know, that we have on the C8 we have a 12-inch digital cluster. And one of the great things one of the things that we found when we were sitting in the car with the round wheel is that the round was kind of clipping off the top corners of the instrument cluster. So we opened up those clusters, kind of flattened the top. Oh, sure. So yeah, so we flattened out the corners of the cluster. We flattened out the corners of the wheel to allow us better vision to the cluster, and then we also dropped the top, which allows you a little bit better down vision that Tad was talking about a couple minutes ago. And then bringing up the bottom also gives you much better access getting in and out of the car, so you're not banging your knees on the steering wheel. So here you can see kind of the final production wheel with the Z mode button that Sang did. And then here's some more detailed shots on the car. One of the things that we really wanted to focus on with the interior for the C8 is really getting a huge level of quality and craftsmanship into every detail. So you can see the different layering that's going on with the cockpits, the various different genuine materials building up, this real leather, suede, perforated metal, and stitched leather. So everything that you touch when you sit in the C8 is going to be real wrapped goods, real aluminum, real carbon fiber. Another innovation that we had here was Corvettes have always had a bass speaker in the door, but in the past what we've done is used a plastic speaker grill, which means you have a big piece of plastic beside your knee. We wanted to see how we could improve on that for the C8. So what we were able to do, working with our engineering team and the team at Bose, is port the sound out through the bottom of the door. So we have these vents on the front, and what that allows us to do is get the bass sound that we need, but also be able to have these nice soft wrapped parts right where your leg is. So that's a huge improvement. And then you can also see, speaking of the speakers, this is a nice shot of the stainless steel speaker grill that's on the waterfall, and you can see the cross flag logo in there. That's kind of a nice tie back to the way we've done the waterfall in the previous cars. And here's the same shot of the speaker grill in the door. You can see the real carbon fiber, real aluminum on the console. It's just some nice craftsmanship shots showing the interior. And here's just kind of this shot just kind of sold everything for us. Is just looking at the driver cockpit area and how exciting this thing's going to be to drive. And we really want that feel of when you sit in this car, you're going to be excited. It's a really exotic environment. And then here's just the whole team that worked on it. So it's at the end of the day, designing car is especially like a Corvette. It's super fun, but it's all about the people, and these are the people that made it happen. So.
So just like on the exterior, we work hand in hand with the interior folks. It's such a highly integrated machine. Everything has to go together. So all the things you're doing on the exterior have to work on the interior. So we really, really wanted, I was talking about the down vision, and we wanted to really engineer every millimeter of that out of the height of the cowl. So we knew that we had the exterior, Kirk pushing the hood down as low as possible, but the interior to follow that was a really big challenge. And so we had to work behind the scenes, like under the skin, to compress everything as much as possible. One of the things we had to do was actually invent a new technology on the HVAC outlets. So they're the thinnest in the industry, really the thinnest that have ever been done. And if you look at them, it doesn't look like there's any veins in it, but it's amazing how well they work. It's actually based on a new principle of airflow and the way we set up the car and the air coming out there. So I can really appreciate that as a way to get everything down. And I wanted to, going backwards here, I also wanted to point out this feature right here. If you get in our cars out there, don't try to pull that off. There's nothing underneath it. We decided to cover our mode control switch with what we call a wrist pad. So a lot of people like touchscreen. It's a pretty good way to get to a bunch of information on the car. But one of the problems on a firm riding car where you're reaching out and touching, actually getting the thing that you want is kind of difficult. So here's an example where design said, you know what, you can do the knob, all you do is touch the sides. We could actually put a stationary, leather-wrapped wrist pad. So if you reach out, you can sit your side of your wrist right on that, and there's a lot of parts of the screen that you can touch, and you have a nice stable place to put your hand. And so it's a minor touch, it looks kind of cool, but it doesn't move. It just sits there and covers that knob. We had a lot of people going, I wonder what's under here, trying to peel this thing off. So, but that's an example where design works together with all the program execution people to solve a problem that you may not realize you had. But anybody who's operated a touchscreen down the road knows it's kind of hard to get exactly where you want to touch.
I noticed, well, as a passenger, able to see the screen all using any functionality?
Yes, so it is angled towards the driver, but with the passengers we've had in the car so far, they appreciate they can both touch the touch screen and they have access to all those controls. So any control of the HVAC, heated seats, cooled seats, whatever, they have them right there at their disposal. And so the people we've had in cars so far have actually really enjoyed it. So thank you very much for the question. It's appropriate for this portion of the presentation, but we want to let Harlan talk about some more of the features.
Yeah, so Brian mentioned the 3C strategy, and this is something we talked about pretty early on with interior design. Really learned from customers coming here to the museum, the events, and talking to you guys, because a lot of people really like the competition seats, appearance, they look cool and everything, but they're not for everybody. A lot of people want something more comfortable. So what we did was we combined some of the features of the competition seat, like the carbon fiber inserts and the Napa leather, and made a new seat called the GT2, which kind of gives you the best of both worlds. And then because of that, we were allowed to focus the competition sports seat even more focused for the person that really wants the ideal track-oriented seat with even larger bolsters that really hold you in on the corner. So we really have 3 different types of levels. Yes, you can get we did do a special competition sports seat for the 1LT. The idea thinking if this is somebody who wants kind of the all-around track car, it actually is all the performance textile material. It's really a unique seat for the 1LT, and that it's really purposeful, really holds you in place, and that's unique to that one. Where the other 2LT and 3LT, we have both the Napa leather and the suede versions. Okay, so this is pretty cool. This is what you see in the 12-inch cluster when you get into your new 2020 Corvette. That was kind of a cool way to welcome you to the new Corvette when you get inside. And I'm going to talk a little about the functionality of the 2 screens we have in the Corvette. Now, so this is your 12-inch cluster. And you see as it goes through the different driver modes, Tour, Sport. You see for Sport it rotates the tack because you're going to be in the higher RPM bands. And when you get the track, we looked at what we use in the race cars. It's very purposeful, functional, the digital readouts, and really takes off of racing where you just want to have that information as fast as you can. Tour mode, more relaxed, straight tack, and then you see how it cycles through here. And then you'll notice we have on the left side, we have gauges. On the right side, you have our driver information center. So on the left side gauges, we call those info tiles, and you can select them. There's actually 8 possibilities. So on your weather, tour, and sport mode, you can pick 2 gauges to put on the left side, whichever of the 2 you want, ranging from battery, ELSD, fuel economy, G-force, oil temperature, oil pressure, tire status, which is both pressure and temperature, and transmission fluid temperature. So you can pick your 2 gauges you want and have them displayed all the time. In track mode, we made that even more functional with 4, you have the choice of 4 little more compact gauges on the left side there to pick from, so you can pick 4 of the 8 on those. And then you can also vary it so that your tour, your sport, your track, you can have different gauges in each mode as well. But if you don't want to touch it, we set it in the factory for you, what we thought you would like, but you're always welcome to customize and make it to what you like. But if you're thinking, well, this seems a little complicated to mess with, don't worry, we all set up. We put in the sport mode, we put the G meter and oil pressure, and then so we tried to tailor it for each of the modes.
And it'll remember which settings you do too. If you customize it, and then you can customize it based on each driving mode. So if you want to set up your Z mode or your My mode with individual customizations, it'll remember that every time you go into that mode.
Right, good point. Good point. It remembers it, so every time you start the car, it's where you left off.
And somebody may have a question about those where you have the small digital gauges. people might say, well, am I going to have to remember at what temperature I start to get into trouble? Because in a gauge you can kind of see how far it goes. The perimeter of it starts to glow different colors as you get close to a warning. So just out of the corner of your eye, if you're on the track, you not only get the digital, but you can start to see when you get to the yellow zone or the red zone. So really easy to spot once you get there.
So on the right-hand side, I'm going to show you how that looks. So you have different functions, different columns. You control this off with the steering wheel, control and thumb wheel. So you have your trip computer information, fuel economy, trip timer. Then we have performance category, 0 to 60, lap timer, and friction circle. We have an audio category. You can easily access the audio. We have maintenance, oil and filter, air filter, engine life, and then we have our options where you can get in there and really, you can, if there's a certain cluster you want all the time, you can override that and do that. You can check your units, your tire pressure, things like that. And then finally, if you say, this is really too complicated for me, I just want things to calm down, we have the minimize. It's just too much. I just need to unwind. So there's a little tour of the new gauge cluster. All right.
There's another cool feature. I don't know if Harlow is planning on. You're going to talk about stealth mode?
No, I
So another cool feature is the same. It's kind of like Simplify, but when you're driving at night, and sometimes you don't want to be distracted of a bunch of lights inside the car. If you turn the dimmer switch, which is on the left side, if you just keep turning that, it'll get dimmer, 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 and the very last click turns everything off except what's legally required. So it's just basically speed. And so the whole interior is just dark. If all you need to know is speed, and it's a dark night, you want to concentrate on seeing out the windshield, that's like a stealth mode.
And one of the things that, excuse me. Sorry. One of the things that we really tried to do for the 7th gen to the 8th gen was make it so there was less interaction you needed to get the information you wanted, so you didn't have to cycle through as many pages. So you see in the right-hand corner, you have your fuel and your range is always displayed, which is always nice to have. And we have the temperature on the left side, it's always displayed, so we kept that there all the time. And then we even also have the gauge V8 or V4, so you can see if the active fuel management is going. And in the upper right, you see this little rectangle with the 3 dashes. Normally when you're on road, that'll show you your speed limit sign. And that some of you may look at that, and some of you probably don't care, but it's there. It's there for your service. And then the head-up display, we also have Tour, Sport, and Track, and you can also, customize these to pick whichever one you want to use in the different modes. Again, head-up displays included in 2LT and 3LT, and one of the neat things about it is on the Tracks mode, we made that really simple, again, with a large gear indicator, the shift lights at the top, again, very racing oriented, and if you have your performance data recorder hooked up, it'll give you your lap times as you go and the plus minus as you do if you're out on the track. And in the sport mode in the center there, gives you the round tack and the G meter as well. And we brought turn signals back to the HUD. A lot of people, well, I know you know who you are, who've been asking for that. And then our center screen is the Chevrolet infotainment system, and this is used across a lot of the Chevrolet cars and trucks. It's a very simple, easy to use system. We also have standard Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, no subscription required, like some people we won't mention, BMW. You just get it and you can use it as much as you like. And we even have this screen, it's a combination screen, if you can put the audio and the navigation together. And you can also control the air conditioning or climate control from the touch screen as well as the strip of buttons down the center. So you can actually do the touch screen too, whichever you prefer. The nav, we have on the navigation. Oops, where did that go? I went all the way back. That was a good question. So the navigation, we have real-time traffic now that's connected. Navigation, it's called. So it will update, you know, red and green traffic, and also give you the best route based on the traffic. Well, updates over the air, for traffic. And the maps are updated as there's an SD card that will have the maps in there. So, did I go back too far? Or was I? Oh yeah, I did, okay. So the new, I want to talk a little bit about the new performance data recorder. You know, we pioneered this back in 2015, and I don't think anybody's come close to even matching it, and given all this time of having an integrated video, audio, performance data system as part of the car, as well as with the Cosworth toolbox that allows you to be like a junior race engineer and analyze your information. But we didn't stand still. We've improved that for the next generation. So some of the things that are new, a lot of you have asked for this. You can have it set automatic, so every time you get in the car it records. People ask for that, like a dash cam idea, so it's always recording in case something interesting happens. You have that recorded. And another thing we've added the capability of both circuits, you know, your normal circuit track, or autocross or point-to-point type of circuits. So you can have a different start and finish line. And then there's also, it'll save the start-finish lines in a library, and hopefully Cosworth's going to put some of those together. But so that one of the things you want to do is compare, so you can have a database of start-finish lines for different tracks on your SD card, and you just pick the one you want, so you don't have to set it all the time. And everybody could share those. If there's an official one to use, you can have that built in. And of course, we still have the valet mode, one of my favorite features. God forbid somebody has to drive your car somewhere, you know, but people in New York and LA, the nice restaurants, you gotta do it sometimes, but it'll record what happens when you're not there. All right. Now we did talk a little about the speakers and how those are integrated into the design, and we work closely with Bose, and this is the first what branded called Performance Series for the new Corvette. And this is on the 2LT and 3LT. It's 14 speakers. It's a lot for a little two-passenger car. And 640 watts of power. And there's really a state-of-the-art audio system. It was at the point, Ted told the story, it was at the point where they were reducing the sound. And we said, why? Because we just didn't think anybody would listen to it this loud, not that it couldn't do it. And we said, no, that's what the volume knob is for. So you can put it about halfway, and it's about as loud as you ever want it, and it goes even more. But when you take the roof out, high speeds, you want to crank it up, it's an excellent system, and we're very proud of working with this. And we do have a long history with Bose, going back to the 1984 Corvette, of having them as our audio system supplier.
Is there a way to make these cars sound systems stay on when the car turn off for like an hour or so without having to shut down? I have a C6, Bose assistant, awesome, but when you take it to drive-in, you get mad. Start the car. So is there any way to do that?
I think you'd have to leave it in what we call accessory mode, where you have to hold the start button in without starting the car, without holding the brake, and it'll stay on.
But that's usually on for 30 minutes.
It does eventually shut. Yeah, it does eventually shut down, because we don't want you to be able to start the car when you leave. That's how we take care of you. Just things exactly like this. It's a great example. Noise cancellation? Yeah, I think we do have noise cancellation.
Which we have on today's car. It cancels when it goes into V4 mode. It doesn't sound like a V8 when it's in V4 mode, and that's all at light throttle, so it's not making a lot of noise anyway, but it does get a little boomy, and that's a little tiring on long trips, and it can stay in V4 on a long trip pretty easily, so that's where we use cancellation. If you look at the door trim, towards the rear, right off your outboard shoulder, you'll see a little plastic bezel there. It looks like it's a snap-in thing to cover a fastener. It's not. It's actually a microphone cover. And so the system, the audio system, is listening to what you hear, and it's positioned there because it's as close as possible to your ear. And based on what you're hearing, in certain frequencies that we know you won't like, that's where we cancel. So whether the audio system's on or off, it's doing that. Even if it's playing music, it reverses the sound waves at your ears to cancel that sound. And it's amazing when we do a demo, when we turn the system on and the sound goes off, you'd swear the switch is working the opposite way. Then when you turn it off, you hear the noise, you'd swear the audio system is making that noise, not canceling it. It's amazing technology.
And I think the next thing we have is the reveal video.
While we're talking about the audio, there's a funny story, because this audio still kicks butt. I mentioned Mark Royce earlier. We were doing a desert evaluation, so we're in Yuma, Arizona, where we have our proving grounds. Our senior leadership came out to check in our progress on the car, and one of the issues we wanted to show them was how visible are these displays when the sun is on them? Because you guys know, historically, the sun in certain angles washes out the display and you can't see. Now we're in fully reconfigurable displays, so they're the brightest ones we've ever done. We got all these advanced coatings. So the demo idea was, we're gonna park a car, we're gonna take the roof out, and we're gonna get Mark Royce present. We're gonna tell him to drive slowly in circles so the sun comes in at every angle, and so he can evaluate the displays. Well, he didn't do that. He took off down the track, and he said, "How's the radio?" And I said, "Pretty good, let's see how good." So he gets in, here we are, cruising around, the whole team's standing around waiting for him to do this low-speed evaluation, and we go blowing by at 120 miles an hour with the roof out and the radio cranked to the max. So we never have any fun at work, it's just sheer drudgery. But that shows you the kind of guy, he tell him to evaluate the displays. No, he's all about the whole car and the whole experience, which is, kind of a dream thing when you guys get these cars. This is how you want to experience it, having that joy of driving. So, he loved the radio, yeah. But he loved the car even more. And we've slowed him down, eventually made him look at the displays, and they are very, very bright, very crisp. You can see the graphics, and so they're visible in any lighting situation we've encountered. So I think that's all we were going to cover today. We'll be back tomorrow, and we'll talk more about some of the other features on the car that we haven't gotten a lot of airtime. We'll have time for questions, but we just wanted to share the reveal video with you before the Q&A. So go ahead. that was the video we showed when we actually revealed the car. That was Mark driving the car. And it was really a high-impact event. Were people at the reveal? How many people actually? So quite a few of you. That's great that you got to enjoy that. The audio in this theater doesn't bring out we had rock stadium sound system out there for the reveal. So it was making it hard to breathe. There was so much audio power in that room. So very, very impressive event, and we're just loving it that it's out here. So we have time for about 15-20 minutes of Q&A, but we do have a hard stop because there's another event coming into this theater shortly. Yes, right here. Okay, that's a huge challenge. I showed the picture where your feet, the dead pedal is right up against the tire flop. The tire flop is the space that the front tire occupies. So through its suspension travels, as it rotates, it consumes a lot of room. That's why the wheel liners are so big. But that's one of the big challenges architecturally, is how do you keep a good pedal box? So the space for your feet, the gas and the brake, a decent dead pedal, and have those positioned straight in front of you. Some exotic cars, if you get in them, you can see the pedal box isn't in front of you. It's actually narrow, pinched, and inboard because of that design constraint. But we worked really hard right from the beginning to make sure that we didn't have that. You get in the car, you don't have to step over any really high rails. The pedal box is generous, it's roomy, and so that you hit right on a big design challenge. That's more of an architectural challenge than a design challenge, but that helps. That's really fundamental to how you position the occupants in the car.
We maintain, also detached point, we maintain the same door opening that we have in C7 in C8 by doing that.
He's talking about the length of the door, so when it opens you have a big opening, because there's a tendency to want to compress that because the front tires are so far rearward. You're sitting so close to them. Yes, back here.
It seems like there's no divider between the passenger compartment and the engine compartment. Do you have much engine noise inside?
Look at the car carefully. When you open the hatch, you'll see there's a window. There's a bulkhead between you, metallic below, so it's aluminum, and it's got a lot of acoustics both on the engine side and on the passenger. The whole construction is almost 2 inches thick. And then there's a mid-glass that we call, so a glass between you and the engine. It's actually almost 9 millimeters thick. It's almost like 2 windshields sandwiched together. It's a relatively small piece of glass, but it's very, very thick. And that was one of the challenges. We did not want you to hear the accessory drive. Accessory drive is high frequency, kind of whiny noise. What you want to hear is intake and exhaust. And so we talked about it a lot yesterday. I won't go into all the technical detail, but that was a big challenge, getting rid of that high frequency noise, but letting the music in, getting the sound that you really like in.
So
but yes, there's a lot.
We get that question a lot. There's the two things that people had preconceptions, was the noise and the heat. And I'll say this car is substantially quieter and cooler than the previous car.
Very, very comfortable for long trips. All the way in the back.
I've enjoyed all the Corvettes I have, and I'm looking forward to this one. But I use these cars in high-performance driving events where shoulder belts are required. I saw in one of your pictures that you did have one seat configured with a 5-point harness belt on it. The outside vendors have told me that it would be 20 months at least after they receive their car before they can provide any kind of harness belt anchoring. Does Corvette and Chevrolet have any way of improving on that, possibly offering a fastening system to go with a competition seat?
Well, historically, GM, you guys want to modify the car to go on the track with 5-point belts. We are not in that business. Our lawyers won't let us get in that business. And so, because then we're validating for safety on the track. We validate for all the street use cases. And so we kind of depend on the aftermarket to take care of that need. We'll be helpful at times, trying to guide people, but we can't be design responsible for what they're doing. So there's not a lot we can do, honestly, in terms of accelerating that. Yes, right here.
Fuel tank location on a new car.
So, like today's car, we have 2 tanks. They're sandwiched on either side of the engine compartment, which is a huge packaging challenge. So you see those big inlets where the quarter panel has a big scoop in it. That's wrapping the air actually around the fuel system. So like today's car, we bury the fuel system inside the body structure, so it's not just the exterior skin. There's actually metallic surfaces on all sides, inside, outside, underneath, for crash protection, and we've crashed this car at very high speeds to guarantee there's no fuel leaks. The fuel tank is about the same size as today's car, and the fuel economy is about the same as today's car, so the range is about the same size as today's car. 18 and a half. Yep. Back here.
Hi, John Smith, Melbourne, Australia. Harlan knows I'm going to ask. But first, let me tell you that 3 years ago, Ford Australia started selling Mustangs, manufactured here in America, right-hand drive. And for the last 3 years, the Mustang has been the biggest selling sports car in Australia. So I can only imagine what the Corvette will do. So my questions are, when are you going to start building right-hand drive cars? When will they be available in Australia? And other right-hand drive countries, but I don't care about that. It's widely rumoured in the Australian press that Holden, General Motors Holden, will be bringing in upmarket models. Will they be bringing in a base model, the equivalent of US 60,000, so that a retired bus driver like me has got a chance of buying one?
Thank you for coming. I appreciate your travel. And what I wanted to say at the reveal when we announced right-hand drive, because to that crowd it was no big deal. Who cares? I wanted to say, Australia, we're looking at you. That's what I wanted to say at the reveal. They didn't want me to. But I've talked to people from Australia for years. We know people are spending a fortune converting their cars to right-hand drive. So from the beginning, and this is a way, actually putting the engine in the back makes it a little bit easier. You don't have as much stuff to move around an engine because the front is kind of symmetrical and open. So it's actually a little bit easier, slightly less expensive to do. It's still very expensive. But we really wanted this to be a global car, so for UK, Japan, and really especially Australia, because we've never been there. We have a lot of passionate car folks there. We're not going to talk about future timing. We did indicate we're going to sell this car around the world. You're not going to have to wait too long. What I can tell you is Australia has no longer wait than, say, Europe. All of it's coming up together, and we'll announce that shortly.
Thank you.
Right here.
So, where did you end up placing the battery, and what if you need to jump the car or want to install something like a battery tender? How would you do that?
So the question is, where's the battery? So today we have the engine in the front and the battery in the back. That's all about weight distribution. As soon as you put the engine in the back, then you're focused on getting stuff towards the front because you don't want it to be too rear biased. That's why we have a carbon fiber extruded rear bumper beam, take weight off the very back of the car. So the battery is in the front, it's right on the center line, it's right behind the frunk. So the plastic panel that you see behind that, that just snaps right out. And the battery is sitting right there. To put a tender on the car, we have a power point inside the frunk. So if you open it up, you look to the left, there's a bunch of things there. There's a switch for emergency escape switch. And then there's also a port there that you can plug a tender in. You just leave the hood cracked a bit. So everything's reversed from today's car. Right here in the center.
Why 495 horsepower and not more?
That's what I keep asking the engine guys. We always want as much as we can, and there's a limit to technology. We always do as much as we can. We don't put a number on ahead of time because we don't want them to stop once they achieve it. We always want as much as we can. If it ended up 485, 495, 505, we would have taken as much as we can get. But there is a limit for engine durability, emissions, all the other things that we have to do. And it's pretty cool. You have well, almost 500 horsepower now out of a 6.2 liter naturally aspirated V8. You can't buy that anywhere else in the world. So,
And it's pretty close to the 7-liter LS7 that we did with 6.2.
yeah, you think about how far we've come, 495 versus 505, that was 7 liters, 7,000 RPM.
Naturally aspirated.
And meeting all, there's a lot of new legal requirements, emissions requirements that we have to meet. So it's very, very challenging to get any horsepower. You see everybody else going to small displacement charged engines. That's the way the world's headed. But talking to you guys, we know you don't want a turbocharged 4 in this car. So unless, do you? You guys want it now? That's what I thought. So.
And then the performance, 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds, makes
pretty
this
good.
amongst the fastest of all the Corvettes, no matter what the horsepower we've had in the past.
We don't spend a ton of, we do development work at the Nürburgring. We do some fast laps. It's not the top of our priority list, but you may see a ring time at some point.
There was a question we had versus from the cell phone. The new technology.
Oh, we do.
It was on the color rollout, and we do have people who have the early orders. There is what we agreed to do with Bowling Green was roll out colors to improve the quality process, so they could get the full line speed going. So we have like the first order cycle. There's 6 colors. Second order cycle, I think we add 2 more, and then the third cycle we'll get all the colors in. So the question was on Accelerate and the Zeus Bronze, so they'll be in the third cycle of orders. So just wanted to answer that. That was from somebody watching us out there.
About right here. Yes, that came up yesterday. There was rumors out there for 48 volts. We were never even looking at it. I don't know where that rumor came from, but it's still 12 volt throughout the car. Yep. As it is today.
Yep, we have, we can go over that, but we have 3 trim levels, and we really concentrated the 1LT, is a great car. You can see it outside as the black car, the 1LT, and then 2LT adds a lot of features, things, and including the navigation, PDR, the Bose system we talked about, the power fold mirrors, memory seats on both sides, blind zone alert for cross traffic. A lot of features in the 2LT, and the 3LT is the ultimate. That has the full leather-wrapped interior, the suede upper, a lot more colors available, and so that's really the ultimate. So we really try to position the car at 3 levels for whatever type of Corvette you're looking for.
On the new comp seat, somebody was going to 1LT in that comp seat. Have you ever thought about in that particular case, having a comp seat on the driver's side and heating
We tend to match the driver and passenger seats historically, but people have suggested that.
Yeah, we've heard that from a few people. I'd be curious how many people would want to do that. So comp seat for driver and one of the other seats, more of a touring seat. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. So 1%. Okay, 2 more questions. Sorry, we're gonna have to close this up. Yes, right here.
Manual switch for the folding mirrors?
Yes. Yep. Maybe we have time for 3.
That was an easy
right here.
We like those.
Yes or no questions only.
So many microphones. I think that the special part about it to me is, I'll repeat the question. The question was, what do I like most about the new interior? I think for me the biggest part is we've pretty much banished plastic from the interior. Everything you're touching is going to be a wrapped good. It's going to be real aluminum, real carbon fiber. It really feels like a premium exotic sports car. Corvette interiors have been evolving and continuously improving over the years, but we feel that this is a giant leap forward.
One more, last one. Pressure's on. All right, right here. So noise cancellation is in both. There's less content in the standard, Bose audio. Still pretty good audio
It's still
system.
a 10-speaker system
Yeah,
standard.
10 speakers, so not quite as many speakers, not quite as much power, but it still does have the noise cancellation.
The standard system's actually pretty close to our up-level system on the 7th-gen car. So you're kind of starting where we left off, and then we went even further with the Performance Series.
Okay, well, I think we have to give time for people to come in, get set up, but I want to thank you all for coming. Like I said, we'll be back here tomorrow early, I think 8:30 start. So if you want a good seat, you have to get here at 6:30 a.m. And we'll have a few little twists on what we did today. So see you tomorrow.